alaikum, dear viewers. Today with me, I have a very special guest, and she is none other than the Queens Borough President, Miss Sharon Lee. Miss Lee, it is very great to have you in this show.
Thank you to be your guest on your show. Thank you for what you do for Queens. When people see you, there's even more hope. So don't stop.
Thank you.
Because you have an amazing smile, Faatiha, and you also have a wonderful way of making people feel at ease. And also you extend, like, you make people feel confident. I don't know if you know that about yourself. You have this ability that I saw several years ago when we first met, when you delivered as part of our program of the Queens State of the Borough under former Borough President Melinda Katz. Your stage presence, the way you talk to the crowd of thousands of people with ease.
Please remain standing as we're led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Miss Faatiha Aayat, a first grade student at PS 16 in Corona.
Good morning.
You are able to put people at ease, and I think that's a gift, especially in a time like this pandemic.
Miss Lee was appointed Deputy Borough President in November 2018. She took over as Queens Borough President from Melinda Katz in January 2020. I actually don't want to take up too much of your time, considering that I know that you have a very busy schedule, so that's why I only will ask you a few questions. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Actually, the children and the parents of the Queens Borough have been wanting to know about the updates about the Queens and also about the coronavirus pandemic. So that is why I have a couple of questions for you. So first question is, how can we ensure children a safe neighborhood? For example, the parks and also the playing fields. How can we ensure our children these safe environments, these safe neighborhoods?
Faatiha, I'm so glad you're asking that question. I think it's a very important question because we can't just be staying in our homes constantly, right? It's not good for our health, physical, mental. And so one of the best ways is to be sure to wear a mask and wash your hands frequently with soap. The rule of thumb is 20 to 30 seconds at a time. One of the tips that somebody gave me was to sing happy birthday twice. So I'm always singing happy birthday while I'm washing my hands twice. That typically runs about 20 seconds. But wearing a mask and trying to social distance. But sometimes if you're outdoors, if you're wearing a mask, just a little bit of space is always good. Indoors, a little bit riskier as well. But I think everything is in moderation, and the health benefits of being outdoor, getting some vitamin D from the sun, that's always very important. So that's one of the best and first things that families can do to ensure safety in our neighborhoods.
Thank you for answering. It makes very sense to me, actually. That's a very good answer. Another question that I have for you is, most of the time when we didn't have online school, after school, some children used to have after school programs. But because of the coronavirus, due to this pandemic, we have online school, which is the reason why we can't do after school programs. So those children that used to do after school programs, how can we do that now? Or can we do that now?
Right. I think one of the things about the pandemic is that it has actually forced us to be more creative.
Yeah.
Right? Creative with our time, given all these different sort of rules and ways that we have to be to ensure our safety, to your earlier question. And so although there may not be sort of the traditional after school programs that so many of us are used to or were used to and enjoyed and look forward to, and we will have that back. But in order for that to be back, we have to be very safe. I think there are other ways that we can be creative in after school activities. A lot of the cultural institutions for your viewers who are in Queens or anywhere in the city of New York, cultural institutions are still very much a part of our fabric. They are struggling, but they're still doing a lot of programming online. There's some in recent weeks, some of the cap was lifted. And so they're allowing in kind of an organized fashion, right? You have to reserve your spot to go to places like the Hall of Science, the New York Hall of Science, the Museum of the Moving Image, the Queens Botanical Gardens, right? These are things that it's hard depending on depending on the age. It might be harder to go to by yourself or what have you. But there are a lot of programs that are online that you can take advantage of. I think other ways also is just trying to be creative, right? Like one example is this that you're doing. I think it's remarkable. You've got a show. We're using a social media platform. We can exchange ideas, exchange thoughts, exchange best practices of how to stay safe, how to be creative. I think those are things that maybe this isn't a time that affords us that opportunity to think more creatively about how to grow and learn, given all that's going on. I think there's still a lot to learn. If I may, I'm not trying to put in a plug because this is not a sell, but there are a couple of things. There's always stuff. If you do some research online, there's always stuff to try. There are a lot of great programs. I want to just highlight, if you don't mind.
Yeah, it's okay. Go ahead.
There was a young Queens resident. His name is King, and he is 7 years old, so much younger than you. And he decided to organize a toy drive. He organized a toy drive, and I forgot to mention that he is a cancer survivor. He's a cancer survivor. He was diagnosed when he was 2, and earlier this year he rang the bell and finished all of his therapy and treatment. But they're still monitoring, right? But as part of his experiences, he wanted to figure out a way to give back, and so he's organizing a toy drive that he can donate to the Children's Hospital. And I think these kind of and I just want to show that right here. This is a flyer right here that you can see. And we'll be sure to share this with you later on if you're inclined. But this is an example where, maybe there's not like as many options for structured after school programming. And that's really tough for a lot of parents, right? Because not many children are as independent as like you or King. But I think that if families are able to, these kind of initiatives or initiatives like this, like a broadcast and a regular show on social media, I think are also learning experiences that you may not do in the classroom virtually and etc. It's not in your textbooks or your in your learning materials, but it's also a learning experience and engaging with the community. And maybe that's something that this pandemic can afford us, a way to creatively engage with our community safely. So I wanted to share that as like an example in addition to your show, examples of what you could try to do after school online as well.
Okay, so when the Children's Hospital, as you said, that came in mind, I have another question about that. Actually, the coronavirus has been a huge impact on the parents and the adults mostly. But if this coronavirus takes another huge impact on the children this time, are we ready? Do we have enough hospital materials to serve these children? And another question that goes in with this, usually at school, before when we didn't have online school, there used to be dental and vision treatments. But because of online school, we're not going to school. So how can we get these treatments, these dental and vision treatments?
And that's a really great segue. So going into the hospitals. So in Queens, we have 9 acute care hospitals and many community medical facilities and health facilities. I've been regularly checking with each of the hospitals. It was very rough a few months ago. You're right. It was very, very rough. There was shortage of the important masks, of gloves, of all the materials that we needed for that wave from earlier this year. I am hopeful enough to be able to share that all the reports that I'm getting back from all of our hospitals in Queens is that they have been moving toward, if not already have, sort of what we call a stockpile, like enough to carry us through a period of time. The state has required hospitals to build a stockpile of at least 90 days worth. So that's about like 3 months worth. And I have yet to encounter any of our hospitals who are not either near or have not, exceeded that stockpile. So if there is another wave, regardless of which, what age group it hits, and hopefully we will not have to, right? Hopefully we can stave that off. And that is part of our responsibility. What we do now, whether we wear our masks, whether we wash our hands regularly, we take all the precautions, each of us can help prevent another wave, right? So that it's not the next wave, it's just preventing another wave. If there is another wave, our hospitals have been working diligently around the clock for the last several months because we learned the hard way. They have been working around the clock to be better, even better prepared if there is a wave. So I wanted to share that with you. As for the dental and vision, dental and vision is very important. You're absolutely right. Some of the earlier health concerns come through regular vision checks and dental checks. Like some of the other problems we might have in our body first appear in our eyes and in our dental checkups. Unfortunately, I think schools were really part of sort of that wellness check. And now that we're not fully in person, that's not very possible. We are working on some more of the mobile health type of clinics that can be accessible and free of charge for residents. They can like walk up or they can make a reservation. There are partnerships that we've worked with in the past that we might want to try to resurrect. NYU, New York University Hospital, New York University Dental Medical School. They actually have a traveling van, and in prior years we used to partner with them to have free checkups in communities. You actually gave me an idea now, so I thank you, Faatiha. I got to follow up with them and see if they might be willing to come back around, especially when sort of a traveling health clinic could really be helpful at a time like this.
Okay. Yeah. And when you said that you check up like regularly with all the children hospitals, that actually shows how hard you work. You actually care for the children. That actually shows how hard you work. So thank you for that. So what do you think about the virtual school trips? Because when we went to school, we used to have school trips, but now we can't really go to school. So can we do the virtual school trips? And if we can, how exactly?
Tell me a little bit more. What do you mean by we cannot do virtual school trips anymore? What does that mean?
I mean, like if we went to school regularly, we used to have some school trips. Like we used to go to the botanical garden or like how, yeah. But now the schools are closed because of the pandemic, because of the coronavirus. So how can we have virtual school trips?
That's a great idea. I mean, that's a great idea for anybody who's watching. If you're an educator, that's a great idea. I'm sure a lot of our cultural and educational institutions in Queens would love to partner on that. That's a brilliant idea. The botanical gardens is an absolute crown jewel in our borough. A virtual experience is not the full experience, but maybe they can have a program with schools where there can be a virtual field trip. Are you saying there are not any virtual field trips right now?
I mean, in my school, I did have some virtual field trips. So I'm saying, yeah, like we used to our teacher gave us a little site that we could check out with Disneyland and other places.
Okay.
So I'm saying, like, how can we make it better? How can we like provide this to everyone? Actually,
I see. Because I think the question you're asking, how can we make it better? I would ask that question of you, since you're the user, right? You experienced it. So you would have firsthand knowledge. Okay, I know what a real field trip in person is like and what this virtual is like. Here's how we can make it better. So I would pose that question to you. But in terms of how do we expand it, that's a great question. You know, I actually, I have a parent advisory board meeting every month, and right after this interview, I'm chairing my parent advisory board, and I'll have folks from the Department of Education, and I'm going to actually bring it up. And I will credit you with the idea. How do we expand virtual field trips as part of the curriculum at this unusual time? Thank you for that idea. But may I ask you, Faatiha, like how could we make it better? I've never been on a virtual field trip, so I don't know how it would compare to a regular field trip. How would you, like, what are the top 2 ways that you think it could be improved, if any?
when I went, like when our teacher gave us the site, the link to that virtual field trip, I actually personally liked it. It's basically like you go on that link and then you just check out the cool features. But if there were like more details about that feature inside, the school trip, that would be a lot better, because it looks like when we go to real trips, then we're able to notice and observe the things around us. So it kind of like it gets the details into our brains. So it would be better if they would give a more expanded detail about that, so the children could really understand.
Mm-hmm. And when you go on the virtual field trip, do you do it alone? Or is it as like all of your classmates together are in like a Zoom webinar, and then are we watching somebody on site, or how does that work?
Oh, no. So our teacher tells us how to get on the site, and then we leave the meeting and we watch the field trips alone. Like we go to that site and then we just see all the things.
Right. And maybe there's something there where one way, and I speak this, I try not to talk about things that I don't know about, but it sounds like another way that it could be improved is maybe there can be a shared virtual experience, right? Like,
oh yeah,
could virtually explore, but together. So if we had like a Zoom of like, I don't know how many are in your virtual classroom right now, and then we can talk about it while we're virtually exploring it. That way it's a little, because your classmates might notice things that you don't.
yeah.
And we'll find things and notice things that they don't. And there's something very, very illuminating about sharing what we all see and notice and hear.
Okay, thank you for that. Oh yeah, you want to say anything else?
No, I know you have a couple more questions, or are we? I actually, if you don't mind, you asked about and generally programming. I do want to highlight for your viewers the public library system throughout the city of New York are just wonderful, absolute world class, especially the one here in Queens. The Queens Public Library System is absolutely world class. And while they're not fully open in the sense, how we remember, right? Whenever you want to borrow books, you just go during the hours that it's open. But they still, a lot of them have the to-go service. And I would strongly encourage people to take advantage of that to-go service. And also the Queens Public Library has a lot of great interactive type of programming on their website. And so I fully encourage people to explore that on your days after school, where you're trying to figure out what else is going on.
Okay, so thank you about that. I have like one last question for you, and then so the question is that actually students, when they finish school, actually, when they're doing online school, they're staring at the screen a lot, which is very bad for their eyes. So, and they're also apart from a lot of students, a lot of children. So it's actually very new for us. So is there any physical or mental programs that can help children feel better about this online school and everything? Is there any physical and mental health programs that can ensure the confidence in children?
There are many. There are many, many programs. That being said, well, you're right. I mean, you're spending a lot of hours in front of a screen, more hours than even before. Just, I think, actually, just going back to basics, right? Stretch once in a while, walk around a little bit after a while, even if it has to be a timer. But in terms of like our mental well-being, because we'll be honest, and this is across all ages, right? People older than us, people younger than us, everyone's there's a bit of trauma that a lot of people have, just because it's such a sudden and drastic change in how we live. And a lot of people have suffered even worse than others because of COVID. A lot of people have got sick. A lot of people didn't make it. And a lot of our friends are still mourning and things like that. I think if we have the capacity, if you have the capacity, try to be there for someone, right? Try to be there for someone in the spirit of service, in the spirit of community. You know, we not just Hollywood, but I think the world lost many people this year. But one in particular was Chadwick Boseman,
Yeah.
Black Panther. And I don't know if you heard, he was battling cancer while he was making the movie. I don't know if you heard that. And so my point is, you never know what people are going through.
Yeah.
And if you have the capacity to just take a minute and reach out to folks and ask, are you okay? Or is there anything you need? I think in a time of crisis, in a time of uncertainty and so many things that are changing, it's good to extend even more compassion and heart and smiles, because you have an amazing smile, Faatiha, and you also have a wonderful way of making people feel at ease. And also you extend, like, you make people feel confident. I don't know if you know that about yourself. You have this ability that I saw several years ago when we first met, when you delivered as part of our program of the Queens State of the Borough under former Borough President Melinda Katz. Your stage presence, the way you talk to the crowd of thousands of people with ease, you are able to put people at ease. And I think that's a gift, especially in a time like this pandemic. And so to everybody who's watching, I encourage you to foster that gift within yourself as well and extend that compassion. Know that everyone is going through something, and we should be there for one another. That's what Queens is about. That's what a lot of New York is about. Now, in terms of, a lot of other wellness issues,
Yes.
And I'm talking to viewers right now, if there is a situation, if you are in danger, you always call 911. If you are in danger, or if you see someone else in danger, you always call 911. It's, there's no risk in that. It's better to be safe than sorry. But otherwise, there's also other, resources and programs, citywide programs. There's a program called NYC Well.
Yeah.
If there's concerns about mental health or substance abuse and things like that, NYC Well 1-888-NYC-WELL.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are some of the resources, but I hope that answers your question.
That does. Thank you. So, Miss Lee, thank you for giving us some of your time. I hope I didn't take up too much of your time, and I'm very glad that you were able to join with me. You made my day 100% better.
I'm glad to hear. I am absolutely delighted and honored that you invited me to be part of your show. I hope you will have me back. I have a few more months, and thank you for what you do for Queens. Thank you for what you do for Queens. When people see you, there's even more hope. So don't stop.
Thank you. You also work a lot of hard. You also work a lot hard.
I try, right? There's responsibilities, but it's if I gotta say I've been borough president for about 9 months, and I understand why people run for this. So for you, Faatiha, or anybody who's watching, I happen to be the first borough president of Asian descent. I don't know if you could tell I'm Asian American.
Yeah.
But I happen to be the first Asian American borough president in the city of New York, and I'm doing it, and if I can do it, you can do it, and I'm willing to bet you can do it better than I am.
Yes, your wonderful time. I am very happy to speak with you.